Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about actions. So let's get into it. Now, what type of actions am I talking about? Well, I'm actually talking about team actions or work actions. So let's elaborate a little bit on this. You see, there is this popular concept within agile development and in office culture these days where you want to have actions as a outcome of any meeting. Basically, if you have a meeting and if you have some type of agenda with it, you want to have something that is actionable. And this is something a little bit of let's just call it not a passion bubble, but it's something that I like to mess around a little bit with. Let me explain. You see, the other day we were talking about, we had a retrospective. And a retrospective, for those of you who may not know it, is that, hey, we work for a certain amount of time and then we have a meeting where we just share our feelings, basically, or our reflections, if you will, on what has gone well and what could be improved. Now, in general terms, you have different categories of people in this environment, where you have people who have a lot of opinions, and some people like to say things that are positive, some people like to say things that are negative, you know, classic, hey, you want people to share their feelings, right? So obviously you're going to have a range of different people with different feelings. But what's interesting about this is that usually what happens is that the negative parts, things that has not gone so well, are the things that you focus on, because it is something, in general terms, that you can make an action on, or at least that there is a desire to make an action on. I mean, if somebody tells somebody else that, hey, you did a really good job, it's really hard to make an action out of that and say, we should strive to keep on doing a good job. It doesn't really boil down to something concrete. But what I find is interesting about that is that you have these people who will still apply that same mentality to actions that can never be solved. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in the specific meeting, one of my favorite actions that come up, which is, it's like, I don't know why people have this one, but we do, or I think I do. And my favorite one is, we should communicate more. There was an issue, and for some reason, things didn't turn out as well as we had hoped, and so we get that golden oldie action, communicate more. How loose is that? Communicate more. Well, the reason why this is my favorite action is because it's one of those things that can never be solved. It's not possible, because the thing that happens is what always happens in human behavior, where basically you start by reaffirming your understanding, or rather basically you start communicating more. You're consciously trying to do it. So you peak, you start communicating more, and then over time you forget about it, and things kind of go back to a natural, normal working environment. Now, what's interesting about this is that you keep on doing this over and over and over until one of two things happen. You do it until you either have another fallback, like you fall back into your old routines and you don't really things are back to normal again, basically. And then you have another meeting where you talk about it again. Or you do it until it settles in and becomes normal behavior. And that's the thing that you're going for. You see, when it comes to some things are absolutely concrete and you can actually make something actionable out of it immediately. Like, for example, add more logging, add more unit tests, these sorts of things. You can absolutely do that. But the things that are truly meaningful to you and your team are going to be things that are a lot more fussy than that. And all I can say is that, as someone who's gone through this quite a few times, where we sit in endless meetings, we talk about communication and like all this stuff, the first and foremost thing you have to understand is that this is, although it may be frustrating, because God knows I think it's frustrating to just have this discussion over and over and over again, the unfortunate truth is that you need to have it. And as I said, the reason why you need to have it is because it's a habit. It's a habit action, that's what I call it anyway. It's an action that you cannot simply go and fix it. It's something that has to do with culture. It has to do with you and your team and your interactions between each other. And the only way you can breed that sort of behavior is over time. You just have to iterate on the thing and actively try to fix it until it becomes second nature to you, or until you get so tired of hearing about it that you don't even come to the meeting anymore. That's up to you, of course. But that is the sort of... I know that because there's quite a lot of engineers and quite a lot of people who don't really like going into these meetings, retrospectives, and talking about this sort of stuff. But unfortunately, that's how humans work. I mean, very few people can just take something that is habit to them and just make it into something different. Or, you know, I mean, it takes a while to actually breed unless you do it naturally. I mean, in the communications example here, I quite often like to communicate, so for me this sort of thing is very easy, it comes very natural, and of course that makes it frustrating when it's not so natural for other people. But I have to have enough empathy to understand that, hey, that's an issue for somebody else to do because it's outside of what they consider to be their comfort zone, just as, I don't know, being extremely into details and precise and stuff like that is out of my, it's out of my comfort zone. You need somebody, and that means that, my coworkers, if we have that as an action or we try to improve in that area, they have to have a little bit of patience with me as well. It's a give and take situation, right? So these are the sort of, like I call them roller coaster actions. You get really good at them for a little while, and you keep that for a little while, and then you fall back into normal routines again, and then you have to talk about it again and again and again until you somehow reach that behavior that you're after. It's very similar to going to the gym, for example. In the beginning you have to force yourself, and you have to do that until it's not a job, quote unquote a job anymore, and it just becomes something that you do because you enjoy it. It's very similar. So what I want you to take away from this, guys, is that although you may find it a little bit frustrating and a little bit irritating to be in these like retrospectives and you talk about things that, they're not really solvable, remember that this is a joint practice session. It is something that you do as a team, not because maybe you can't do it like immediately, but it has to do with training and becoming like a real team. Because trust me when I say this, if you don't think that this works, try to set yourself down in a room of complete strangers, or just hire completely different people, as consultants or whatever, put them in the same team and set them next to a team that has worked very closely together for years, and see how much of a difference in productivity and efficiency you're going to have. Because there is quite a lot of difference, I can swear it to you. And that's why these things become important over time. Have a great day.